Okay, fun fact number 204 about Jugo. I don't actually watch a lot of sports anime at all. The most knowledge I have on sports anime is basically most of Kuroko Basket, which I watched with a friend, which I had a really good time with, and I really should finish it, to be honest, as well as just the experience of some clips here and there of certain sports anime, or maybe even a few edits here and there. But I saw Oblivionbattery and I give it a chance, and it actually hits. All pun intended, by the way. Like, comment, subscribe, by the way. But before I get into this underrated piece, let me at least get into the story first. The story first starts out with Haruka and Kei. Now, these two are completely dominating in the field of baseball right now, in middle school. That's a grown-ass man! But they're completely dominating in the field of baseball right now, where they're seemingly beating every single team in the league, and some faces that are unknown at this moment in time. Then we get a super hard cut to the hospital where Haruka visiting Kei with some bandages on his forehead, and he says, "Who are you?" Then we hard cut one more time to see these two characters that are supposedly supposed to go to some of the best schools in the country for baseball specifically. They actually go to a regular old high school, or a whole bunch of girls basically just around them. But Kei basically sees this guy called Yamada. He's like, "Oh, my friend, I can't believe that you're here." He goes to shake his hand and talk to him, and he doesn't actually know him at all. But that's all I'll say for the story. I definitely want to get into why I really do like this anime, as well as just some of the spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. So it's only 8 episodes out, so if you're gonna go watch it, go ahead and watch it. But here we go. So some of the reason why I do really like this show is just like, it's a slow burn. It feels completely slow in a way that we're sort of getting up to like their first game, and I love it. It's like one of those things where, like, if you have a slow burn, it can either go one or two ways. It could be either really terrible in the way how it's structured, or really great how it is in this anime, at least in my opinion, where like we're continuously building up to something and they're all needed for whatever purpose they may serve. Like, for example, when we get new players for the baseball team itself, we not only know like their positions, but we also get to know who they are as a person, and we sort of get like a little bit deep in depth of like who they are to their core, and how they got to a specific position right here right now. What it seemingly is like where baseball seems like it's a little bit of a second fiddle at this moment in time, but at least we did get one practice game at the beginning of the season, and I'm pretty sure by the end of the season we're gonna get a singular game, or at least the game of all the players that's been built up to this point, with us knowing their problems but also their solutions is how to really fix it before we get up to that very first game. And not only does it feel like a sports anime as well as character driven stuff going on, but it also feels like a comedy at the same time. There's like 100 million references, as well as so many things that are said that are genuinely hilarious, at least to me. They're funny as shit whenever they are said.
山ちゃんとは今この瞬間で絶好です。さっきの親しくなかったんだよ。
法的で素敵なお母さんじゃないの。そんな恥ずかしがる必要ないのに。みんなチェリーボーイちゃんなのかしら。
Something I said earlier about this show, which I said in the earlier part of this video, but I also think it's the best. It's just, it's character driven. I think that is the main focal point of the show, is just the characters itself. It really works hard on the characters and sort of working them into being this dream team of people. With one of the first people I want to talk about is Kei. I think Kei is just really extremely interesting because of who he was even just from before, even who he is now. From before he had amnesia, he used to be the commander. He used to be one of the best people in baseball, or as well as being a catcher itself. Seeming to have a whole bunch of structure in his life, as well as a whole bunch of control into what he's doing, having a whole bunch of focus into what he wants to do next, just helping out his friend Haruka so he can get to the next level in baseball. To then have this cracked mirror version, or just this version that was in the past before he started baseball, and he was just a very not only immature person, but he's also at the same time lazy and mostly just goes off of impulse itself, showing how much of an effect baseball really had on his life. It gave him a good old structure in his life, so he actually has a way and a pathway down life to become a better person, which happens a lot of times in life, where necessarily you get that one thing that sets you straight, that one thing, that one activity, that one person that can actually set you straight, and you really go on the pathway of doing the best person that you really can be. And that's why I really think Kei is so interesting, is because he's having a whole restart of his life, especially in loving baseball, as well as having a new experience of like gaining more friends and more people that he can love and appreciate other than his partner Haruka, with the added bonus of slowly seeing him become better and better and better between each episode. And lastly, he has a huge positive trait, is caring. He always cares about his friends as well as the people that he even says that are his friends that he might have just met. He cares about what they have to say or their opinion as well as what is best for them. He even states multiple times maybe we should go to a different school to have a better chance at baseball, because right here right now is not a really good chance of you getting to anywhere doing this shit. And I might as well just switch over and talk about his partner, which is Haruka. Haruka is a man that doesn't say many words. His actions speak louder than words, and whenever he does speak out of his mouth, it becomes something completely stoic and very extremely important. Like for example, when he wants someone on the team, he'll say specifically out of his mouth, "You are my shortstop," and tends to really acknowledge these people for who they are as well as their abilities in baseball, because before necessarily there was only a 1-2 punch combo with Haruka and Kei. It was that's it. No one else necessarily was important, or no one else was in the forefront, or no one else was even seen in their eyes as important until they got on this team and they started to see everyone else's potential as well as who they are as people. And just to put it bluntly, Haruko is just a really good friend. He actually said, you know what, I can go to all these good schools by myself, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay with my friend. I'm going to be with my friend because he's not only my catcher, but he's my friend. I don't care even if he does necessarily get his memories back or not. He's my catcher. He's my friend. I want to be with this guy until we make it to the championship because I know we can do it together. I also love his comedy bits as well, with one of them being his personality and the other one just being a really funny bit that was at the beginning of them trying to get 2 new players. And the way he got these 2 new great players is by actually having some old pornos that's from his older brother. He just like gives it to them. He's like, I'll give it to you if you join my team. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Then the other one that's just straight up his personality is just his competitive nature. He's always been a competitive person, so whenever someone is better than him in a specific little niche or whatever the case may be, he's like, oh, I can do this too. There's no way that you can do it. I can do it better. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Just really seemed like a really helpful person. Now, someone that I think best describes this person is that looks can be extremely deceiving, and that comes with Yamada. Now I can see a whole bunch of people saying like Yamada is basically just such a negative, and the reason that is because technically speaking, he's the main character. He's the one that's been doing the voiceover the whole time, as well as sort of just saying the story of what's been going on, as well as his thoughts just getting sort of blurted out, with him not only looking basic looking, but everyone else in the cast seems far more important as well as far more interesting in a way. But I think Yamada is a lot more than what we see. I think Yamada is extremely important for this team and extremely important for the overall morale of everything. He not only helps every single person on this team, he gives them a morality boost whenever they need it. He always attempts to help them whenever they ask for it, or maybe they don't ask for it at all. He just sees like they need help and he's willing to help them. And in reality, it feels like we get so little about Yamada as a whole. Like it almost feels like we're the viewer itself, like sort of being a self-insert into what's going on, with him always spewing a good idea here and there. But I think that we're gonna get more with Yamada because he was also one of the people that lost to this beautiful duo that was just dominating baseball. So I think we are going to get more about his family, his home life, and his skills as the series like starts to slowly continue going. And without him, none of this really would have happened. But it's time to get into basically probably my favorite person at this moment in time, because we've had like 2 singular episodes focused specifically on this character, and it's Todo. Wait, no, not that Todo. It was basically, for all intents and purposes, is the fucking crash out of the group. At least he's on the surface seems like he's the crash out of the group. Until we give 2 full episodes into his backstory and sort of how he got to the point he is right now, being this crash out ass-esque person. Seeing back in the past where necessarily he led the group of people, even though they were older than him, he actually led his own baseball team. And he always said, oh, I'm #1 Todo. Everyone call me #1 Todo. And they would always be like, yo, we're your seniors. Wait, hold on, relax. They'll be saying stuff like that. We sort of see how good he is. He's actually a good player, but every single player that seems like to be a good or average player, when they meet the #1 duo, then everyone just sort of breaks down. They see like, oh, I'm actually not that good, or I'm not that great. And that happens to Todo. He actually faces the #2 people, Kei as well as Haruko, and he gets destroyed, and it sort of fucks with him in the head. And this was for a few reasons. One, it fucked with him because he always thought he was the best, so it sort of messes with his ego. And 2, he not only were people looking at like the scouts, people that will look out for him to put him on a team, as well as just for his teammates to put them on the team, because this is their last year to be able to get picked out by a scout and get put into a really good team or a really good school for a team. So by the end of the game, where he tries to apologize and he says, I'm sorry, the rest of the team is like, oh, okay, it's fine. But when he walks away around the corner, he just hears them all crying and sort of just being really sad that like they messed up. And he feels like whenever he says sorry, to never ever say sorry again. It's never gonna fix what necessarily happened. And it feels like it's a callback back to the earlier part in the show where he says, yo, do not apologize, don't ever say sorry, because you can't fix the action that's already been done, which almost feels like a borderline philosophical question of like, should you even say sorry? Because necessarily, like, you are sorry for what you've done and you have to at least borderline say it, but like, their actions always speak louder than words. What you're doing and how you're specifically doing it always matters, and sorry isn't necessarily going to change the result of the thing. So he has all this on his consciousness. On top of that, he also obtained something that's extremely horrible. I feel like these two things are hand in hand with each other. So one, he has trauma from all of this. Two, he has the yips. The yips is basically trauma but for the body. His body necessarily can't work necessarily how it used to before, and in terms of him just simply throwing a ball into a singular direction, where his body necessarily just stops. It can't actually throw it correctly, so he'll just throw it way too above or way to the left or way too to the right. And I sort of love how the team loves him so much and they think he's such a great player that they want to keep him, even though he has this big issue and problem that makes him of a lesser player. They want to find solutions around this, and they do actually find a solution for this. Just having Yamada go to the left and right and just getting used to his throws here and there. And the way it's written is pretty well, because like, you just sort of see how far Toto is like sort of falling. He grows out his hair, he sort of just gets into fights and scuffles in the streets. He's getting worse and worse, but he doesn't want to necessarily have his body feel worse because he doesn't want to necessarily smoke, but he'll always just keep fighting back to back to back because he feels like it's his fault. And what I gained from Toto is basically like, you can't always put everything onto your shoulders. You can't always put everything onto yourself. It's literally gonna break you down once you do that, because if you fuck up, you're always gonna think it's my fault, it's always been my fault, I'm the issue here, I have to fix myself. It's a complete and utter recipe for disaster. You're going to break down at some point and you're going to mess up bad. That's why it's so beautiful when he gets to be able to let go of that trauma, when he actually meets one of his old teammates that was crying and he says, it's not your fault, it's okay, we all worried about you, are you fine? I'm glad you have new friends and you're actually still playing baseball. But his only response is to actually just sit there and cry, because he actually has all this weight lifted off of him. He actually feels like he doesn't have to uphold anything anymore. Letting him move forward and become an even better player, even though he still has the yips, he's going to get better and he's going to get rid of those yips one day. The last person is Shunpei, but I'm not going to talk about him for now because we don't really know necessarily a lot about him, and I feel like we're going to have a whole bunch of more character development by the time we get to the last 12th episode. But I feel like this is a completely underrated gem. I think everyone should go ahead and give it a chance or give it a shot. I'm not really into sports anime, but I actually really do enjoy this one. So other than that, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.